Resident Evil.
Hi everyone, I'm Resident Evil.
I'm Chris.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Rootskarn, and, well, Resident Evil. That's a nice press release.
We're playing the first one. We're playing the HD re-release of an HD re-release of the first Resident Evil, so that tells you how old this game is.
Resident Evil.
Nah.
But we promised something that would be slightly less totally negative than the last 2 weeks of spoiler warning. So
And this was a PS1 game, wasn't it? First PlayStation?
Yes.
That was where this...
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
wait.
you've got...
You should have let us take a look at that difficulty selection screen. That actually looked interesting.
Can I go back to it?
Wait,
oh, here we go, yeah.
Can you actually
How
set
do you
your
like your
character's
games?
costumes?
Yeah, it looked like it was.
So... Yeah, this is like a weird, like, this game has tons of weird anachronisms, like the 90s sort of, like, very wordy difficulty setting thing.
Like, assuming that gamers can relate to an exercise analogy.
Right. So you've got the old, like, Resident Evil apparently always had this where you could choose which character to play and that changes things, but you've also got, like, a B story for both characters, which also changes them to look like their later appearances in the series, which...
Yeah. When Chris Redfield went from, like, go back to the last one.
Yeah, when Chris Redfield went from, like, you know, like, boyish sort of police officer to meat sack.
To Captain America? Yeah.
Military-themed pro wrestler.
Sergeant Slaughter? Yeah, I missed out on this game. I didn't have any consoles in the night. I skipped the entire 90s with regard to consoles, so I missed this game entirely.
There was a PC release.
But I didn't play that either. I did not see this game until years and years later. I'd heard of it, and, so this is weird for me to... I know very little about this game except by its reputation. Put it that way.
So, who do we want to play here? This is the first Resident Evil game I've ever actually played. Like, I played...
Really?
Like, 5 minutes of Resident Evil 2 in...
I am by no means a Resident Evil expert, but I'm the only one that's played multiple Resident Evils here.
I played 4 and 5. I've played 4 and 5, so...
So this is a very different game from Resident Evil 4.
So I played Resident Evil 2, a little bit of Resident Evil and Nemesis, and I've played the DS game, or the 3DS game. I've played Resident Evil 5 and 6. I haven't played 6. I take that back. But I've played several of them. But it's been a very, very long time since I've played the survival horror and not action Resident Evil. It's been a long time since I played Resident Evil 1 or 2.
So, who should we be here?
They're both good characters.
Let's not do the new one. Let's see the original in the HD.
Right.
So pick one of the classic characters. All right.
I also like that Chris Redfield has a penny in his ID for some reason.
He's the master of unlocking. He's got to be able to unlock things with a penny.
Which
Does
is
this have
interesting because Jill is the one that has the lockpick in this game and not Chris,
I actually thought it would be a neat touch, like, how I interpreted it was, he just has his ID in his wallet, and sometimes a penny just gets its way in there, and you're like, fuck it, I can't be bothered to fish this out.
Oh man, the HD re-release doesn't have the original live-action...
No, so when they re-released this game
sad.
for the GameCube, they redid all the voice acting, so it's not, like, super corny anymore. It's not like literally, we hired a bunch of Americans off the street to to play white people in our shitty like camcorder cutscenes.
They were legendarily bad. I've seen them. You can see that. I'll see if I can find them on YouTube.
I wonder if
they
that's
are
like an unlock.
notoriously
This
horrible.
This game has a bunch of unlocks if you like
Continue our
play,
search for the
if
other
you accomplish
members.
different things during the story. So I wonder if that's like something you can unlock is to play them like super
So
original mode.
FMVs were already sort of on the wane when I was really like first coming into my own as a gamer, but I play a lot of old games and I see a lot of FMV stuff, and I noticed that whenever I stream a game that has FMV in it, it really sort of surprises people and catches them off guard. Like, this is not something that holds up well. Like, for example, the second Elder Scrolls game, Daggerfall, has an FMV intro, and nobody saw that coming when I streamed that on the regular.
Can we somehow fit Star Wars Rebel Assault into zombie mode? Because that's on good old games now. I don't even know if I could get that to stream correctly.
Later Resident Evil games.
Like, they kind of retroactively made a canon around this, right?
Yeah.
Like, the original game was not... It did not have the silly Umbrella Corporation stuff that showed up later.
No, it did. It did. The Umbrella Corporation had been there for a long time. Or has been there since the original. What got weird was the way the virus kind of worked, and then also how powerful Umbrella was, and how all these characters went from being like local Raccoon City PD to international anti-bioterrorist super cops. It's one of those series that like starts being a little weird, but ends up being completely ridiculously incredulous.
Hey, it's Wesker before we realize that he's super evil.
I love that he's still wearing the sunglasses, and he just loves them so much he keeps them forever.
He's wearing them in the middle of the night, being attacked by zombie dogs.
Well, to be fair, he apparently can.
Enter the survival horror.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker...
Well, we gotta find the survival horror. Where is it?
We don't know where Chris is.
It's presumably through this door.
Well, okay, if that's the survival horror, don't fucking go in there.
Place.
Not quite your ordinary
There might be a
house.
Five Nights at Freddy's in there.
There are zombie dogs
Wesker,
outside.
where's Chris?
I mean,
You know, for having redone
We
this,
don't want
this
it turning
is
into
still
a
pretty
shooter.
cornball.
Out there.
But that's actually probably good. If
But
they
we
tried to
got
make
fine.
this a little too good, it
What
would
was that?
feel wrong.
Chris.
right. I mean, the
No.
dialogue is definitely not top notch,
Jill,
but it's a
don't
lot
invest-
less like
I'm going with her.
silly than
But if they
like
had
the
made it
delivery
great,
is not like.
if they had really
Alright.
made it solid, it would
You two
feel
go.
wrong. It would
I'll
not
secure this
feel.
area.
It wouldn't be a proper.
Right, it
agent.
wouldn't fit. It would be like,
sharp.
well, wait a minute. It would kind of draw attention to like all the other sort of weird stuff that happens in this game that doesn't make any sense.
And that's part of the charm of the original. Is just it's almost like The Room is just like if you redid The Room to be a coherent movie, it would sort of ruin its charm.
Like, how well could you reasonably expect to do also? Like, you could create a mediocre The Room. Like, you could create a mediocre movie. That is, like, 1,000 times more worthless than The Room.
So,
Right.
already we are like way deep into the survival horror elements here and not so much the this is a shooter elements.
Okay, so one of the things you have to realize is that this is building off of a lot of what Alone in the Dark did, but
I
it
think you'd better take a
Yeah,
look
sort
at
of
it looks
this.
exactly
codified
like
it.
Alone in the Dark, actually.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, if I could talk about technology for a sec, the
Jill,
reason you had those fixed
see if
camera
we can
angles
find any other
is it would
clues.
render
Examine
exactly
this.
1 frame.
Let's just hope it's not
You know, it would
Chris's.
take like 2 whole seconds to draw The Room, and then it would save that off to the side and then just render your character on top of it. It was a really, really smart and interesting way of doing it.
Were,
Of course,
were those not like
no, they were bitmaps.
pre-baked, pre-rendered? Yeah, weren't they
well, they
just
had
images?
No. They had layers. They had layers of.
That's true.
I mean, maybe
some
they-
of them did.
Uh,
Eventually
although
they
they
did.
might
I don't
have
know
just
if Resident Evil 1 originally did, but eventually, yeah.
And you could turn in Alone in the Dark. You could turn down the graphical stuff, and stuff in the image would become less detailed. So I believe it was rendering a single image and a single depth buffer, and then saving them and rendering on top, reusing it every frame. Which I think that's an interesting way of doing things. But then it sort of like, today you can render, 30 whole frames a second, so the whole fixed camera angle thing is now a stylistic choice instead of a technological hack.
Well,
But
yeah,
you
I mean,
can see
obviously
the camera
this is a
moves
remake,
bit
so...
here. Yeah, like
When
you
the
can
two
see the
run
camera...
each other through the...
Those are hands on a clock. I haven't figured out what that... So I haven't finished this game yet. I've put a couple hours into this. So we might actually get to the point where I get some solve puzzles as they happen situations.
and I'm looking forward to that.
But I'm pretty sure those refer to the hands on a clock and the painting with like the short sword and the long sword is like a specific time or something.
I
don't
do
think
love
we
that
actually
they.
have to kill
I
this
love
guy.
this zombie though. Like I love that
So these
introduction to
are-
the zombies.
Yeah. So these are
Is that Chris?
the old zombies.
No,
These
I'm
zombies are
I'm
really
like 50
stupid.
pounds heavier than that guy at least.
Barry!
What is it?
Look out! It's a monster!
Look out! It's a
Let me
monster.
take care of it.
Yeah, this dialogue is still not great.
I was more asking, like, is that supposed to be the character you haven't chosen that he was feasting on?
What the?
No,
No, that's
Chris
not
is alive
Chris.
in the
I
canon.
found Kenneth
Yeah.
killed by this thing.
Well, naturally. I mean,
Let's
I
report
assume
this
that
to
whichever
Like,
character you
I-
did not pick is the one who's missing.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, as I understand it, like this is just like you pick the two different characters, and this is like depending on which character you pick, like that's the one that ends up with the group going into the mansion rather than getting separated. What the hell was that?
I have to say the weird... I've never got the weird mix of survival horror with cornball.
Wesker!
That's never worked for me. The cornball makes it impossible for me to find anything scary.
Good idea.
But that's like, people love this game and they talk about how scary it is. And I have a serious question. Is that because you're young? Is that because this was the first survival horror? Or do some people have no problem mixing cornball humor or, haha, this is so bad it's good, with supposedly this is scary?
all of the above. I mean, obviously this game has a huge nostalgia appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, there are tons of horror movies that I love. They're terrible, terrible cornball movies that are full of campy badness, but they still, you know, scare me occasionally. You know, watching, you know, a crappy,
What's going on around here?
you know, like
I can't
Gremlins, for
figure it
example.
out.
Gremlins is a
Same
good
here.
mix of horror and comedy.
Now Wesker.
Or
yeah.
even,
There's not much we can do.
I'm trying to think, like,
Search for him separately.
Evil Dead's a horror
I'll
comedy, so that doesn't quite count.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try the door on the other side.
This man-
I don't know.
Campy is, I think, what I like. Shaun of the Dead. Well, it's not really scary though. But
Well, Shaun of the
Dead.
Dead is a comedy movie.
Right, but I'm
I
just,
mean, this is not
for
a
me,
comedy game. I mean,
Right.
maybe it's a genius of a comedy game, but I don't think so.
Thanks.
It's
I made it.
but for me, horror and fear are
Something
all about
happens.
atmosphere,
Let's meet
and
up in
nothing
this hall.
destroys atmosphere.
Got it?
Oh, was that the
Okay.
Master of Lockpicking conversation that I just missed?
I think it is
That was
in the
the I
version
handed
that...
you. That was the it's dangerous to go alone. Take this lockpick.
Yes, that's what this is,
conversation.
yeah.
And then
Well-
you don't use the lockpick for like an hour. And you get really confused about how you're actually supposed to use it, and you're walking up to doors and like hitting the use option on the lockpick, and it doesn't do anything, and you're like, am I doing this wrong? And then you finally find a door that opens with the lockpick, and you're like, oh. Is my experience with this game? No, I don't want to do
So
that.
for me, like silly campiness just kills the fear for me. Like I can still find the game frustrating or hard or weird or
No,
interesting,
no.
but I can't
No,
be
stop.
scared when
Stop doing
it's
that.
corny.
You actually want to know something interesting? I think I could get a lot more scared of this game if I was playing the original, with like the shitty graphics.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I can
I-
kind of get that.
This game looks really nice, I think. Like
It does.
It's interesting that it's gone from like being a technical marvel to like looking like an indie game now. But I think it's really cool.
And I mean, you know, it's like the art style and, you know, the rendering is perfectly fine. You know, it has kind of a nice, like, Dear Esther look to it, I guess. But, I feel like with the camera angles and everything like that, like, I could
So
sort
we've got
of...
a map now.
it's too well realized for things like your cop outfit, like the way you look like a police officer, like doesn't seem super scary when it's rendered this well. It looks like a cosplay. Maybe because I'm just used to people cosplaying Jill Valentine.
This is oh, here, tutorial stuff. This is a suddenly a zombie comes out of nowhere. This is like, I think this was an appearance from a later game. It was Jill Valentine that they kind of like back. Like I said, that was the case with. So I got that dagger and now I used it.
Oh no, one zombie! I mean, just compare this to like Resident Evil 5, when you like fight hundreds of them in the tutorial.
It's really interesting to just like kind of look at the way this series has evolved.
That's right, you're out of bullets.
Because no, I have 15 shots, but I don't want to use them because this is a real survival horror game. You do not have enough ammo to kill everyone. Like,
well,
you will not find enough ammo
that?
to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that for a bit? Like, it has to be stated that this game's mechanics and part of what makes this game work so well as a survival horror game. Yeah, it's totally dated. Yeah, stylistically, modern survival horror is closer to, say, Bloodborne. But, first of all, Bloodborne's great. This is Bloodborne's great-grandpa, first of all. Second of all, I love the fact that the stilted camera angles and the lack of good aiming controls, the tank controls, are all designed to make this game actually really scary, and it works really, really well.
This game is at its scariest when it's doing scary, when like you go into a hallway you've been in 5 times and suddenly like 6 zombies break through a window and you're like, I have trouble dealing with one of these zombies, now there's 6 of them, what the fuck do I do?
And you have to make that split-second decision between running past all of them to where you wanted to go, or retreating, or wasting ammunition.
Oh.
But I feel like something about the something about this level of polish, I think, would actually be a real impediment to me getting into this like survival horror rendering.
Also, I think the one thing I can't remember much about the original because it's been so long since I played it.
I dig
but the one thing,
this particular angle. I think this is really cool. I'm sorry. I like the look of this game.
The one thing I really think that they nail in this version, and I can't remember if it was done similarly well in the original, is the sound design. How it really does, like, they play with silence and noises a lot.
Yeah. I was like, there's a lot of music in the the very initial bits, and I was getting kind of annoyed with it, but then it kind of peters off, and there's a lot of like very silent, like you're just walking around a house kind of sounds. But you know that there are zombies in the house.
I actually think I put my finger, because I've been stating this very poorly and sort of talking around it, but I think I've put my finger on why I feel like this. I would rather play this with the original graphics. One thing that actually makes horror work in a video game, which it doesn't really work for a lot of other genres, is lack of specificity.
Yeah.
When you play a game with sort of like the with sort of old crude graphics and like where zombie is like kind of this shambling thing.
No,
like we saw the zombie, and like Seamus says, we're like, oh no, it's another zombie. It's like it looks like a very specific like generic zombie, the sort of thing we'd mow through 100 at a time in Dead Space or Dead Rising, Dead something or another, the Dead of the Year. It's something about playing like the old Alone in the Dark games. It's like you don't really know what the fuck it is you're up against quite. You just know that it's making a weird noise, it's moving towards you, and if it catches you, it'll kill you, and you've got only tank controls to defend yourself.
Oops, I didn't take that, did I?
Although from there, oh, go ahead, Craig.
No, I might be switching the topic up a little bit, so go ahead.
No, you go ahead because I was going to switch it.
You go ahead. No, anyway.
No, you go.
Now I forgot what I was going to say. God damn it!
Victory!
Oh, I remember.
We're all professionals here.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting to me though, like with the benefit of hindsight, that how well designed the game's core mechanics are to facilitate horror, and how like intentionally designed they are, and yet how absolutely terrible most of this game's actual puzzles are. As an adventure game, the adventure half of this, they are awful. They're not okay.
It is interesting.
They're
This
not
game is
tape on cat mustache puzzle bad.
Right,
but
they're not
pretty
that bad, but there's a
Anybody
lot of
who
like,
does not know their gaming history would suspect that you were just coming up with random words there. But no, that's an
So
actual
here's
game
how
that
you
might
figure. So you got this arrow that you found randomly in a place, and you can try to use it here to fit into this lock that apparently takes an arrowhead, but it won't fit into the indentation. So you have to examine it, and then you have to notice that the arrowhead can be removed. So then you just like discard the rest of the arrow, and then you can put it in.
Stuff like that. Stuff that would like 14-year-old me would get stuck there. And so when I played this when I was a kid,
I got stuck there.
It's
So like, how would they do that in a modern game? Like if they had an arrow and they wanted you to use just the
It'd be
arrowhead.
you would
Somebody
either
would
just
get
pick
on
up
the
the
radio.
arrowhead.
Somebody would get on the radio and explain to you how to separate the arrowhead and then tell you where to put it. And
It'd
then
be
there would
one
be a
of-
prompt at the bottom to on
You
what
take
button
the
to push
Book
to
of
make it happen.
curses.
I think it would be one of a couple ways to do it. One is you just pick up just the arrowhead because there's no, the sort of minimalist design would be pick up the arrowhead because there's no reason to pick up everything else. One other school of thought would be the Tomb Raider school, which is pick up the item and be able to inspect it by sort of putting it around in your hands. But if they were going to do that approach, modern games would also make sure that you would have to do that for every item. So there'd have to be some sort of unlocking thing or lore or something tied to every item so that, everything you picked up got examined. And so when you examined the arrow, you would take the arrowhead out, would be my guess.
A better question, which is setting aside the obvious answer, don't include it something like an arrow you need to separate an arrowhead from. How should you do a puzzle like that?
Depends on your goals. I depends on
Yeah,
what the game's trying
like,
to do.
okay,
The
let's say
question
you
is
were
like, does
designing
that
Resident
puzzle need
Evil.
to exist at all?
Well, let's say you're designing Resident Evil and you wanted to include that puzzle, and you knew that like the player had to remove the arrowhead from the arrow, and like so how would you set it up? Like that would be designed ideally in a way where the players have to make the leap. Oh, I need to take the arrowhead off of the arrow, but it's not obtuse.
So, this is, if you don't mind me interrupting here, this is another one of those anachronisms. This is a 1996 game. You have limited saves. Your saves are limited by inventory items.
So again,
You run out of ink
that,
ribbons, you can't save anymore.
but that's very much a tension-generating thing, right? Because you have to make a decision
Right.
about whether or not you want to save your progress or hold on to that ability to save your progress.
Right, and then when I haven't
it's
saved
the
in
sort of-
several hours and I lose, I have to make a decision about whether I want to uninstall the game or just drop my computer
Right.
into the toilet.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I really, I have, and I know we disagree on this, but I really have trouble getting upset with a game doing interesting things with save systems. I really like it when games mess with them, and I'm the guy that liked Alien Isolation save system, so I'm weird. And Dead
Yeah, no,
Rising.
I
and,
could definitely accept and understand that. I think we are at absolute opposite ends of that spectrum.
Yeah, I would be on Rutskarn's side. For me, if I'm making out-of-character decisions like, do I want to save the game, I'm no longer sort of immersed in the game, and I start thinking, it's like, do I want to burn one of my save resources? I start thinking, all right, well, it's about 10 o'clock, I need to go to bed soon, and do I want to save, when's going to be the next one? I don't want to leave this on overnight and lose all my progress to, a power outage, or I don't want to have to leave this machine on overnight and worry that I'll lose my save. So I guess I'll
I think
save
that zombie we
Wait,
trapped is gone.
so I'm no longer afraid of zombies. I'm suddenly worried about my real life and the stupid bullshit and go to work in the morning. And it absolutely, it doesn't just like make the game less scary. It basically, I stop playing the game for a minute and I stop having a good time. So the last thing I want is to think about out-of-character
that breaking
stuff.
glass would absolutely make somebody shit themselves in 1996.
If you come back in
Yes,
here, a
it
bunch
would.
of dogs break in and murder you, which is not cool.